This is the Fathom-Lord Karathress fight from Serpentshrine Cavern. As you'll see, each of the 3 adds and the boss are tanked in different corners of the room. We begin with the hunter in this corner. Hunters will misdirect the adds to the various tanks. I'm watching to make sure as the shaman ad runs across the room to his tank, he doesn't drop a totem. If he did, we would take that down quickly because they cause a great deal of damage. He doesn't, so that's great, and I can go straight to the hunter ad and begin DPS. Open with the usual opening volley of 3 to 5 scorches, depending on how many fire mages are in the raid to get that debuff up. Then a fire blast. And then pop your trinkets. In this case, I'm using Serpent Coil Braid, so I'm making sure I get my mana down by 1,000 under cap before I pop my least powerful mana gem, and then my various trinkets, and then go into my usual DPS rotation of 3 fireballs to 1 fire blast. Usually this is being held by a pally tank because there is a pet as well. The other tanks will have had plenty of time to build up aggro, so feel free to use invisibility here in order to dump aggro if you need to. Those tornadoes run around the room. They don't hurt you, but they do throw you into the air, which interrupts DPS time, so move away from them if you can. You see I got too high on the threat, so I use invisibility. That's totally fine on this, because you won't need it again later in the fight. Around 60%, the priestess who's across the room will begin to try to heal the hunter. Hopefully you'll have a shaman and a rogue on that to interrupt those heals, otherwise it takes far too long to get these guys down. The boss will be hurting people in the raid as well with his shadow bolts, so you will need to be healed through this portion of the fight as well. Mana is not so much an issue on this fight, so it's useful to go ahead and use DPS oil and DPS food, as well as a flask in this case. Just continuing the usual rotation, 3 fireballs to 1 fire blast. If mana becomes an issue, you can cut the fire blasts out of that, which will be a small hit in DPS, but will save you a lot of mana. And the hunter goes down, and you stay in this position and take down the pet. The pet varies. In this case, it's a spore bat. Sometimes it's different, but you have to make sure he goes down. Once he goes down, you will then move to the next position, which is in the other corner, where the shaman is being tanked. This is a good time to evoke, since you're not wasting a lot of DPS time here. You run over to that corner and we'll start DPSing the shaman. There shouldn't be too much in the way of aggro problems because the tank has had plenty of time to build threat on him. The key here is if he drops a Spitfire totem, you need to immediately switch to that. So it's very useful to have a macro here that's just /target space Spitfire, and then /cast, and I use Scorch here because it's a fast cast that gets you targeted on it, and then you can use fireballs or fire blasts, what have you. So yeah, as you can see, I have my Spitfire cast hotkeyed, since you want to be able to do that quickly. Luckily he's not throwing down any totems, so we can just DPS him down, again avoiding those tornadoes. Again, when he's hit 60%, the priestess in the other corner is going to try and heal him. Hopefully you have people interrupting. Sometimes it's useful to have a mage on that priestess to also throw some counter spells and prevent those heals from getting off. Keep in mind, if you're on the priestess, you may get frost bolted, so it's useful to make sure that there's a healer who knows that you're there. Once the shaman goes down, the boss has the ability to take on Spitfire totems. So while most of the raid will now go to the priestess in the other corner to get her down quickly, I am on totem patrol. So I go straight to the boss to take down any totems that he throws down. Usually we have 3 people, a mage, a hunter, and a rogue, who go straight to the boss, who's already being tanked by the tanks who's had from the beginning, just to take down any totems that he throws down, while the rest of the raid quickly takes down the priestess. If he's not dealing any totems, you can DPS him, as you see me doing here. The key is to make sure that he doesn't go below 80% while that priestess is still up. If that happens, if he goes under 80% while the priestess is up, he will go mad in rage and kill everyone. So your DPS may take a little bit of a hit here. You may have to hold back if he starts getting toward that 80% mark. But your goal here isn't really necessary to kill him. It's to keep those totems, as you see one there, under control. Otherwise, they will attack the whole raid, and it will be very painful. So you just stand here. Anytime the totem comes up, you'll get an emote from DBM, and you hit your macro, and then start casting. Generally, I find that the macro, which casts Scorch, and then a Fire Blast, if other people are on it, will take it down pretty quickly, and I can Scorch it down. It's usually not best to cast a Fireball on it, although here you see me doing it because we have fewer people helping take it down, because frequently, by the time the Fireball is cast, if the whole raid is on those totems, it's down already. The priestess isn't going down quite fast enough, so I leave the totems to help take her down a little bit faster. She will, of course, try to heal herself as well, so keeping those things interrupted is great. You see the tornado hits me, I'm thrown up in the air, and it takes time out of my damage rotation. There's a totem up, you can see, because I'm getting hit by fireballs, but at this moment it's important to get her taken care of. And we have other totem people who are taking those down. Once she goes down, then the entire raid can focus on Fathom-Lord, and it becomes a very simple tank and spank fight. The only difficult portion making sure that everyone switches immediately to the totems when they come up. So we take her down quickly. If she doesn't go down fast enough, of course, she'll heal herself, and we will approach the 10-minute in-range timer. She goes down, and we all head back to the boss. Again, you see there's a totem up, so first priority is using the macro, and then getting it down quickly. And in between that, you can then switch to Karathress himself. He'll be still throwing those annoying shadow bolts around the raids, which will hurt people. He now has also abilities from the priestess, which I think is a Frost Nova type. So you want to stay at range. But again, aggro isn't so much an issue here because the tank has had a huge amount of time to build threat, so you can really open up, if at all possible. Just making sure that you always switch to the totems when you see them. Because I don't have a Shadow Priest in my group at the moment, I'm going to encounter some mana issues toward the end of this. Had I been an intelligent mage, when I saw that my regen wasn't enough as I needed, and that my pots and gems weren't nearing the end of their cooldown, having used Evocation right at the beginning of the fight, I would switch to Mage Armor at this point, which would help me regen a great deal. But stupidly and greedily, I kept Molten Armor on, and toward the end of this fight, I will not have quite enough mana in order to maintain DPS. Remember, if you run out of mana, all that delicious haste gear that you have will do you no good. Haste gear, with lots of it, will gain you a few extra seconds worth of casting time in a fight, and if that casting time is spent standing there because you have no mana, it's all been for naught and a waste. But if you do have mana, again, making sure that you use potions and mana gems at every possible cooldown, then you can just continue your usual rotation of 3 fireballs to 1 fire blast, or cut the fire blast out if you have mana problems, making sure, of course, to take down the totems as your first priority. Again, you want to try, if possible, as you see me doing here, to keep things in parallel, trying to use cooldowns at the same time as mana gems, and down